What is up, nerds? Welcome back. I am Nate in the Wild. I missed you all so much. It has been a while since I've made a video like this, but to be honest, I've been pretty busy. I went to Alaska. I launched a camera into space. Couldn't find it. Launched another one. Did find that one. Made a documentary. Packed up all my stuff. Moved to another state. Yada, yada, yada. Just finished building out this brand spanking new home studio, specifically to keep bringing some spicy YouTube content to your eager eyeballs. And while I am definitely not 100% done with it, I figured it was close enough that I could turn on the cameras and say hi. I want to talk about the biggest news of the past week, which was the announcement of the new Sony Alpha 1. And while the response to this camera was overwhelmingly positive, I did see quite a few people who seemed a bit confused about what this camera is for and who the target audience is, so I wanted to talk through that a little bit. I've already pre-ordered mine, and the second it arrives, I'm going to show you a hands-on test, but in the meantime, I wanted to share my first impressions and discuss some of these features. So, first off, I've seen several people talking about the very impressive video specs and arguing that this is basically a compact cinema camera and there's nothing interesting here for photographers, and that honestly couldn't be further from the truth. Well, of course, the 50 megapixel and 8K video resolution is the banner headline for this camera. Sony snuck some incredible technological advances under the hood that I think will honestly revolutionize things like wildlife and sports photography. Starting with the design, this camera is more or less in the exact same body as the A7S III, featuring dual card slots for UHS 2 cards or the new CF Express Type A cards. Sony kept the same 9.44 million dot OLED viewfinder, but increased the refresh rate to 120 FPS, which is twice as fast as the A9 II, and expandable up to 240 FPS if you choose to reduce the resolution for additional speed. Sony increased the utility of the EVS on this camera, however, by allowing you to zoom out the image to display settings at the top and the bottom of the EVF, or zoom in to 0.9x magnification with settings overlaid on the image as usual. They chose to ditch the articulating back screen from the A7S III at the request of professionals, and I have to admit I'm a little bit torn on that. I like the ability to rotate the screen out for like low angle portrait shots, but I have struggled with my A7S III screen blocking the doors for the HDMI, the microphone inputs and stuff. The other great thing about the Alpha 1, this body features the most aggressive weather sealing we've ever seen on a Sony camera, which obviously excites me a lot. And it features the new menu system first introduced on the A7S III. Response to the new menu was pretty unanimously positive, so I'm glad to see they stuck with that. Another relic borrowed from the A9 II is the ability to close the mechanical shutter when the camera's powered off. So when you switch lenses outside, it helps keep dust and everything off the sensor, which for people like me who do a vast majority of our photography work in nature, this is a major benefit. All right, let's dive into it. Let's get to that incredible new sensor. This is a back-illuminated CMOS sensor like we find in the A7S III, which significantly improves light capture and reduces noise in high ISO shoot situations. But it's also a stacked CMOS like we find in the A9 and the A9 II, which is known for blistering speeds due to the DRAM chip being built directly into the back of the sensor for faster readout speeds. That, combined with dual Bions XR processors, the new Alpha 1 is able to perform a full sensor readout 50% faster than the A9, despite having twice the resolution. So this is going to lead to significantly less rolling shutter distortion in action and wildlife photos, which for me is a huge draw. And Sony hasn't necessarily confirmed whether or not this is going to be a dual gain sensor, but they have teased excellent performance at ISO 4000, which leads me to believe this will have dual base ISO, which has major ramifications for low light photography for things like wildlife and sports when you need to keep a faster shutter speed to reduce motion blur. If I'm seeing 50 megapixels at low light performance like the A7S III, I am sold. I know hearing things like stacked and backlit CMOS with on-chip DRAM and dual processors has kind of a tendency to turn brains into mush, but the easiest way to think about all that is just one word: speed. This camera is fast, 30 frames per second at full resolution, fast. Now, if you want the full 30 FPS burst, you need to be shooting compressed RAW, but the uncompressed RAW still tops out at a blistering 20 FPS, again showcasing A9 caliber performance at twice the resolution. The compressed RAW is actually still the full 14-bit image, however, so I don't think this will be a major or even perceptible reduction in image quality, but I'm definitely going to be testing this out once I have the camera in my hands. This is also the first Sony camera to offer a lossless compressed RAW, which promises all the editing latitude of uncompressed RAW in much smaller file sizes. I'm pretty excited for that. And As usual for Sony's flagship cameras, the Alpha 1 offers blackout-free shooting, allowing you to shoot and track moving subjects without losing sight of them in the viewfinder. This is common enough that people more or less take it for granted now in high-end cameras, but to me, this is still one of the most exciting advantages to mirrorless systems over traditional DSLRs. Blackout-free shooting is physically impossible with a mirror flapping up every time you press the shutter, and as someone who shoots a lot of fast-moving wildlife and action sports, I'm really excited about the possibility to track and frame my subjects continuously during a burst scenario. Perhaps the most exciting advantage of this faster electronic shutter readout is the reduction of banding you're going to capture under artificial lighting also. The 1/200th of a second readout rate is sufficiently close to a mechanical shutter that Sony promises there's going to be practically no banding captured with fluorescent or LED lighting, but they actually pushed it one step further with the Alpha 1 and integrated a flicker reduction mode that automatically detects 50 or 60 Hz cycle rates for electrical systems, and it syncs the camera shutter to guarantee that your shots fire at the brightest point in the flicker cycle. Taking it even one step further beyond that, the Alpha 1 offers a variable shutter mode in both stills and video, allowing you to fractionally tune the shutter speed to avoid clashing with artificial lighting. If that doesn't get you all hot and bothered, I don't even know who you are. Moving on to the autofocus system, the Alpha 1 has once again integrated the best parts of the A9 II and pushed them just even further beyond what we thought was possible for a camera. We're looking at 759 phase detect autofocus points that cover the entirety of the sensor almost, and those readout points scale when you crop. So when you're shooting in APS-C mode, you still have access to the full 759 autofocus points. I have to admit I'm not really sure I understand exactly how that works, but it sounds pretty cool. The real-time animal eye autofocus, which was already considerably impressive, is now available for birds, which was a huge challenge for the machine learning algorithms, considering birds have really small eyes and how varied different species of birds can be. But again, I'm very interested to try this in real life once my camera arrives. The faster readout and processing power of this camera means that it performs twice as many autofocus and auto exposure calculations as the A9 II, up to 120 per second. So this means that if you're shooting at the full burst speed of 30 FPS, the camera is auto-calculating both focus and exposure adjustments 4 separate times for each photo. This will dramatically improve AF and AE accuracy and precision. Additionally, the stacked and backlit CMOS sensor provides so much more usable information from the sensor. So that means that the autofocus system can now perform nominally at apertures as small as f/22. That means you could take the 200 to 600 with a 2x teleconverter and shoot at 1200 millimeters at f/22 and still have world-class autofocus performance. So I'm talking to every bear on planet Earth when I say, I'm coming for you and I don't gotta get close no more. Now, I'm not gonna spend much time on the video specs for this camera since that seems to be the only thing that most people are focusing on, but the video aspects of this camera are actually very impressive. It has 8K footage up to 30 FPS, which is downsampled from the 8.6K native sensor resolution. And although the 8K is 10-bit, it is only 420, but the good news for this is that the 8K footage can be written to a V90 card, UHS-2 memory card, meaning you don't have to invest in those really expensive new CF Express Type A cards to take advantage of 8K footage. That's actually kind of a fun bonus since this is already a $6,500 camera. 4K footage on this camera is pixel binned from 8K up to 120 FPS in 10-bit 422. And in Super 35 mode, the camera downsamples native 5.8K footage to 4K, which I'm expecting to be just absolutely beautiful. And of course, as usual, Sony allows full 16-bit RAW footage to be recorded externally. And for the first time, we have Sony's S-Cinetone available outside of a high-end cinema camera. All in all, this is one of the most impressive cameras I've ever seen, putting advanced professional features into a consumer-sized body, but it is at a professional price tag. All in all, this is one of the most impressive cameras I've ever seen. It has advanced professional features in a consumer-sized body, like the size of an A7R4. But it is at a professional price tag. This is certainly not a camera for everybody, both from a pricing standpoint and due to all of the incredible extravagant features, but for the photographers who need it, this is an absolute godsend for the Sony ecosystem and an amazing, impressive first offering from Sony for their new flagship professional tier line. I'm very excited to get mine. Please stay tuned. I will definitely be doing an in-depth walkthrough once I have it in my hands. In the meantime, I'm Nate in the Wild. Thank you so much for stopping by and getting nerdy with me. I'll see you all next time.